Hello, everyone. So I'm Shazia Ginai. I'm the Global VP of Consultancy at Lumen. And I'm here to talk to you today about quantity meeting quality. We're talking about the age of quality, but actually we're all desperate for a bit of quantity. We all love a bit of data, right? So I want to talk about where the two things come together. But before I start telling you loads of amazing things that Lumen does in the 8 minutes that I have, I want to just tell you how I kind of got here and why I think this stuff is important. So I started my career working brand side. I worked for P&G, and then I was at GHD, and I was doing all that fun stuff, researching what humans think, feel, how they behave. I'm a nerdy researcher through and through. And then I went from that extreme to completely the other side, where I went to a company where we were measuring people's brains. So we were ignoring everything that they were saying consciously and measuring what was being encoded into their memory at a subconscious level. Absolute magic, right? We know that those 86 billion neurons in our brains are responsible for all of our decision making and our behavior change. But between that point at which something goes into your brain and that point at which you're talking about it, there's something else that happens, and actually that's where Lumen comes in. And you can't actually encode anything into your memory if you don't see it in the first place. So attention is incredibly important when it comes to all this. I'm seeing lots of nodding heads, which is great. So I want to talk to you about attention today, but not just attention. I want to talk about outcomes. So unseen, firstly, is unsold. This is one of my favorite sayings that comes out of Lumen on a regular basis. And I guess you all know, like, the average consumer today is moving fast, right? Scrolling through a gajillion different things, lots of social channels, lots of websites. And it's all happening really quickly within a few seconds, and we're actually probably switching between screens as well as we do this. And our attention is incredibly divided. And ad campaigns, no matter how good they are, they've got a hard time keeping up with this, right? So we often measure impressions and viewability. So we're like, okay, of our ads, 100% of that stuff's going to reach a screen. Great news, we can measure that. About 70% of that is probably viewable. That's all well and good. But what we found at Lumen is actually only about 30% of that is actually seen. If it reaches the screen, that's one thing, but how much of it is actually seen? And guess what? What's actually seen, quite a lot of it isn't looked at for very long. As I said, people are in an attention deficit at the moment for sure. And so by measuring a quality metric, what we are able to understand is what's really, really happening, and that will help us to drive outcomes. So from the work we do at Lumen, we're able to take those, what's actually seen, how long it's seen for, and quantify attentive seconds per 1,000 impressions, right? Everyone's sort of like, yeah, this makes sense. We should probably do this more often, right? And then what matters in addition to that is recall. So that's at the bottom of that funnel there. And the reason recall matters is because we have to measure attention for sure, but we need to understand how that drives outcomes. And I go back to my neuroscience days when I know from the science that's age old that what goes into your memory drives your decision making and your behavior change. So actually that quantifying that recall and what goes into memory is critical in this as well. So I've got a total of 5 minutes left. I've never done an 8-minute talk. I feel like it's very precise. So I'm going to share with you 3 case studies just to showcase our work and some of the cool stuff that we understand. That is the reason why we as a business really believe that we've got to drive the change in how we measure media. So I'm going to start here with some work we did with Dentsu. You can download the full report. It's a Dentsu Attention Economy project. You can Google that and find that and download a report. But the basic stuff here is that we know that, you know, for visual content, seeing it matters, but actually the outcome is really vital. And what we did in the study is that we researched and gathered data to confirm that actual attention to ads is really critical for brand recall and choice. And as I said, what goes into your head is what's going to drive what you do next. So brand recall is really important. So just measuring those metrics at the top of that funnel I shared is not enough. What we found actually was there's a direct positive impact of increased attention on those lower funnel objectives, including longer dwell time and greater prompted recall. And ads that receive more attention, as you can see on the chart, they're significantly more likely to be remembered. So it's we know this, right? This feels very intuitive. But there's a second part that we can move into, which is to get in front of an audience, we often, as advertisers, we optimize for viewability, right? Yeah? Yeah. But viewability, we know, it doesn't guarantee attention from an audience. It means that your ads are delivered, right? They're delivered to the website, but there's no way of really knowing if a viewable ad will actually get noticed, and more importantly, if it's going to drive click-through. So what we did in a study with PwC was we looked at all the data and we tried to demonstrate the actionable relationship between viewability and click-through, and also attention and click-through. And the charts are pretty self-explanatory, which is a delight for me, given I've not got very much time. But what we can see here is actually attention is a great indicator of, you know, what's really going to drive click-through, whereas viewability, it's pretty much, it's there, but you don't know for sure if it's seen, therefore you don't know for sure how much action will come. And then the last one, and this is possibly the most important, is we live in capitalism, right? It's a shit show really, isn't it? Let's be honest. But it means that businesses either want to make money or save money, right? So profitability is incredibly important for us to understand. And so we did an enormous study. For any of the data nerds in the room, this is like soft porn, frankly. It's a study we did with Ubiquity where we looked at 140 econometric models, 14 brands across 6 categories and across 4 different media agencies. So it's a lot of data. And what we're looking at here, as you can see on the chart, is we were plotting out attentive seconds. So again, this is what is actually being seen versus the incremental profit. And what's magical about this is that we looked at it across obviously multiple media platforms, and the correlation is 98%. It's so strong. So it shows actually attention measurement is an extremely accurate way of understanding profitability, right? Far more so than some of the measures that we are using currently. So I've got 40 seconds left. I'll leave you with 3 things, okay? So attention, it drives memory, okay? And memory drives decision-making, behavior change. It drives purchase intent. So unseen is unsold. And the longer that something is seen for, the higher the chances that something will happen. So this refers back to the charts around dwell time. The second point is quality metrics matter. So we have to move beyond viewability. Attention is a great predictor of what happens in upper and lower funnel metrics. I showed the data around click-through. What we want is a measure that helps us to drive not just a bit of data, but also what does that data achieve? And then lastly, attention really matters for the bottom line. So that correlation of 98%, again, data nerds in the room, strong, right? It's very strong. And what that's showing us is that attention is a really, really great indicator of business outcomes such as profit. So if anybody wants to know more, I've just gone over. If anyone wants to know anything more about us at Lumen and the work that we do, I've got a couple of colleagues at the back of the room, Matt and Rich, raise your hands. Please come and find us and have a chat. We'd be happy to speak to you more about driving attention to outcomes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shazia. That was fantastic. We've got one question for you, which I think it's nice and broad, and it ties in really nicely with your final comments. What's the one thing in measurement within the industry today that you would change?
Oh, okay. So it's nice and broad, that one. I think the main thing I would change is that we have to move from just getting data for data's sake. I think it's something, we all love numbers, we all love data, right? And I think we feel safe with data. We're all quite risk averse. But what we need to change really is just gathering data. We need to gather data that links to outcomes and data that's really showing what's going on at a human level. And so that's why at Lumen we really shout proudly about the fact that we measure attention to outcomes.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Shazia.
Thank you.